Hey guys, welcome to another speed build. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Today we are over in Willowcreek and I am building a huge, elegant mansion using only the base game. I really wanted to try out the brand new staircase update. I've been dying to do this since it came out, like literally a week or two ago. It's been a while at this point. I've already done a build kind of playing with the new railing system, but the house that I built before was way too small to do the new staircase where you can make the top or the bottom like flared out. And I've been dying to do that, so I said, you know what? What better build than like a big mansion? So that's what we're doing today, and I had so much fun doing it. And of course I wanted it to be only base game to really showcase what you can do, and it just sounded fun to use just the base game. I said, let's go to the Oakenstead lot, which is the biggest one in Willowcreek, if I'm not mistaken, and it is a very, very beautiful lot. Oh, by the way, the biggest one as far as residential goes. The park technically is the biggest, but I'm talking about residential lots. This Oakenstead one is definitely the biggest. I think it's like 50 by 50, and it's so intimidating to build on because of how big it is. And I said, let's go big or go home. And I absolutely love the surrounding area of this lot. I think it is absolutely gorgeous. I love that in the front, it has like a view of the water, whether it be the ocean or the bay, I'm not really sure, but there's a water view in the front, and then in the back there's like a river and plenty of lush landscaping. It is just absolutely beautiful, and I just don't build here enough. This is like the first Willowcreek mansion I'm doing on my channel, and so I really wanted it to look like an obvious mansion, you know, and I wanted it to be really pretty and elegant and have a lot of these grand fixtures and details on there. And at the end of the day, I do think I achieved that, and I think it turned out really good. The only thing about this video today is it is very, very long, and a lot of you guys tell me that you really enjoy the long videos, so I'm happy to hear that, because sometimes when you do such large builds, the videos just have to be a little bit longer, and it's about an hour, so there is that. I did cut a little bit out. I didn't cut too much out. I cut out like the bathrooms because there's like 8 or 9 of them in this build, and so I said you don't need to see 9 bathrooms, okay? But everything else is pretty much included, so I really hope you enjoyed today's build. Of course, if you do, please do not forget to leave a like. This took me a lot of time, guys, so leave a like, please. I beg you. No, I'm just joking. If you like it, leave the like. And also subscribe if you have not already, and share this video with your friends if they are simmers as well. Also, if you want to download this build, it is available on the gallery. I don't upload it anywhere else. Technically, I do have a Tumblr account, but I have not used it in a very long time. So I don't really plan on uploading any of my builds anywhere else. So really, honestly, it's just the gallery. I'm sorry. I mean, that might change in the future, but as of right now, it literally is just the gallery. So if you are interested in downloading, definitely go check it out on my gallery. And it's always linked in the description box. It's always linked on my profile. And while we're talking about it, it is literally just the Clumsy Simmer with no spaces. And if that doesn't work, then add spaces, because I can never remember if there's spaces or not, to be honest. But with all of that being said, let's go ahead and talk about our build for the day. So at this point in the build, we pretty much have the structure exactly how I wanted, at least in the front and on the sides. I do have to do the back still. The back is pretty similar to the front, but it does have some differences. It doesn't have the curved patio and balcony, and it pretty much is pretty much the same other than that, but we'll talk about that once we get over there. I do want to talk about a couple of things that I knew I wanted to have before I started this build. So I knew I wanted to have this curved patio and balcony. So the original house that is on this lot, it has a similar design, to be honest, but it's just really poorly executed. It is not a good house whatsoever. At first glance, you're probably like me and you're like, okay, that's actually not so bad. But then when you really start looking at it, you're like, okay, it is bad. It 100% is bad. I could see the vision, but they just didn't execute it very well. I don't know if it's just how the base game was when it first came out. They didn't have, obviously, as many build tools that we have now, but I feel like they still just did a really, really poor job. No offense to the Sims team. This is not news to us, though. I think they know this by now. But yeah, so I could see the image, I could see what they were going for. It just wasn't done very well. And so I wanted to keep that same sort of vibe, but make it better. And I think I did a good job. I think I did make it like 100 times better, maybe even 1,000,000 times better. It is like night and day from the original house to this house. And they also used like a green trim, like green columns, green detail on the outside of the house, and I don't love that, to be honest. I knew I wanted to use blue. Blue is like one of my favorite colors, especially as far as like houses and architecture and stuff goes. A blue with a white trim is just so elegant and beautiful to me, and so I knew I wanted to use those two colors together. And by the way, look at the staircase, guys. Look at how absolutely beautiful it looks. I wanted a grand entryway, and I do think I achieved that. I think I did a really, really good job on the entryway. So you walk in the front door and you meet this grand staircase that not only is it 3 tiles wide, but it also flares out at the bottom. I know that you can flare at the top too, but honestly, I prefer it just to be flared at the bottom, I think. I'll have to test it out at the top, but for this build, I definitely wanted it just to be at the bottom. And at first, I'm not gonna lie, I thought the railing looked a little bit weird, and I still kind of do. If you look too hard at it, you'll see that the railing on the staircase, once the staircase is flared out, I don't know, there's something off about it, but all in all, I think it's done pretty well. I mean, you really can't be perfect with everything. I mean, I'm a perfectionist, so I want everything to be perfect, but I, by far, am not a perfect person. None of my builds are perfect, so I guess I don't expect anybody else to be perfect either. But if you don't stare too hard at like the curves on the railing, then it looks fine. But some of it just looks a little bit harsh, I guess. It's kind of hard to explain. But yeah, like I said, if you don't look too hard at it, yeah, you really can't tell. But I do love the fact that they finally updated the railing system to put a rail on just one side of the staircase. So how I have the stairs on the outside of the front of the build, we have like the curved patio, which that was one feature I knew I wanted to do. The original lot that was here had like a square one, but it had the staircases on both sides like this, and I really liked that. But I wanted to like upgrade it a little bit, and I said, you know what? I feel like adding a curved patio would upgrade it to the point of what I'm trying to achieve, if that makes sense. Like, that's gonna upgrade it to my standards, I guess. And it's really gonna make it look very elegant, and that's what we're going for at the end of the day. And so that's what I did. I ended up adding a curved area in the front, the patio and balcony, and then I have the staircases on both sides because I didn't love the way it looked in the front. I really enjoyed the look it gave with having a double staircase on both sides. I probably could have added a third one in the front. That probably would have been a little bit much though. And so I'm glad I ended up adding landscaping in the front and then leaving the 2 staircases on the side. So I do think the front of this build really honestly turned out breathtaking. Oh, and I was talking about the railings when I started that. On the staircases in the front on both sides, I made the railing only on one side that's not touching the foundation, and so you will no longer see the railing clipping in with the foundation or the wall or the window, whatever the case may be, that problem is no longer. And I'm so happy about that, because every time I do like staircases and I want to add a window, for example, on the inside of a house, I can never do that because you can see the railing in the window. You either have to ignore it and it look hideous, or you can't do it. And so I'm so happy that they added that update finally. Another feature that I wanted was like a fountain in the very front. And I really wanted the fountain to be multi-level, but I didn't know how to achieve that. I don't think that is really possible with just the base game tools, to be honest. There was a couple of things I was looking for that ended up being pack items. Like there was like this fountain top piece that's kind of like a bowl on the top of like a stem. I know I'm so good at explaining things, guys, but you probably know what I mean. That's from one of the packs. I think it's from Lovestruck, if I'm not mistaken. It's from one of the newer packs, I think, and I was looking for that, thinking it was base game, when in fact it wasn't. So I tried my best to make the fountain look as fancy as possible with what I had to work with. And so I just, I took a couple of curved fountain pieces and I put them together to make 2 curved pieces on both sides, and then I made this sort of design that I feel like makes it look a little bit more elegant than if you did just like a regular square or a rectangle. And then I added a few like fountains inside of the fountain. Like I added a few like fountain pieces that like squirts water up, I don't know the actual term for it, but you know what I mean. You've seen me place it. I added the double dome one in the center. I ended up adding the large double dome. Gosh, that is hard to say, to be honest. The large double dome in the very center, and on both sides I added just the single medium dome, if I'm not mistaken. And I feel like adding all those 3 fountain pieces next to each other really looked really good at the end of the day, so I was super happy with it. I do end up adding a pool in the back, and the pool was another thing that I was really trying to think of how to upscale it a little bit to make it look more fancy. I only have the base game. I can't have the fountain pieces. I can't have, well, I do end up adding fountain pieces, but I'll get there in a minute. As far as the fountain pieces I'm talking about like the stone with the waterfall and stuff that you get from one of the kits. You don't have the water slide. You don't have the diving boards. I don't have pool floaties to put in there. You're really lacking on base game. So when you do base game builds like this, like a base game mansion, and you make it fancy, you're really honestly showcasing your skill, I think. Like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but at the end of the day, it's true. If you could do a base game mansion and make it look very fancy like this, you're honestly a really good builder. So yeah, in other words, I think I'm good. That sounded so conceited, but I do think I did a really good job on this build, and I tried really hard, and it honestly, it kicked my butt. It took a long time, and that's why the video is so long. I even made it sped up. Like, I usually do like 4 or 5, and this is at a 6. I could have done 7, but the 7, I used to do 7, okay? And that was just way too fast. I couldn't even tell what I was doing, and then I felt like I had to talk fast when I was watching it. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just do 6, and then I'll just have it a little bit longer. Like, really honestly, between 6 and 7 speed, it only takes off like 5 to 10 minutes. It's really not that big of a difference. So I was like, let's just keep 6. It isn't so fast, and I feel like it's better. But like I was saying, what I did with the pool, you'll see here later, and I'll probably talk more about it, but just as like a brief detail, since I brought it up, I did the same sort of design that I have in the front on the fountain with the pool, but a little bit larger, and obviously with the pool tool. It's a pool, it's not a fountain. But in the very center, I ended up adding one of the fountain like water pieces where it squirts water. And I did the large double dome with that too. It looks like it's just floating there, but hey, listen, let's just not pay attention to that. It adds an extra fancy detail that was definitely needed to make the pool look more fancy, okay? And then on each four corners, I added one of those fish-like fountains, and I added a couple of like ladders. I added some designs at the bottom of the pool. I'll talk more about it once we get there way later at the end of the build, but it did turn out really fancy and I'm very happy with it. I struggled with the back a little bit, but at the end of the day, I do think it ended up turning out really, really good and fancy. That is what I was going for. But at this point, we're actually working on the kitchen. So these are such large walls, guys. This is actually the third wall height, and I have those really large, I think they're called friezes if I'm not mistaken, on the outside of the wall. And I really wanted to use platforms on the inside of this build. You guys know me, if you're a returning viewer, I always use platforms in pretty much every single one of my builds. And so this wasn't going to be any different. And I even told myself, like, with how large these walls are, I'm going to be able to put like a lot of platforms. Well, guess what? We don't have a single platform in this build. Well, yeah, we do. We have one in the dining room. And I was so disappointed to see that if I put a platform in a room and delete the walls, for some reason, when I delete the walls, it makes the frieze on the outside of the house non-existent. Like, it's there, but you can't see it. It's like a bug, obviously. And I was so sad when I seen that. You'll see me, probably, unless I cut it out, when I do the dining room and I tried to put it up on a platform and I deleted the walls, you'll see me realize and kind of struggle a little bit. And I was so sad at that point. It really was a sad moment because I really wanted to use platforms. So long story short, there is no platforms in this build because I really wanted those large friezes on the outside. It just made the outside so much more elegant and fancy and actually looked like a mansion that it would have been missed if it wasn't there. So I had to choose, and I had to choose the frieze at the end of the day. I was at least able to put this platform in the center of the dining room. It's really honestly just when I removed the walls. So I had to put archways there instead of removing the walls, which is fine. But I do like making my own archways or just having an open floor plan, but it is what it is at the end of the day. It turns out really good, so I guess that's all that matters. It just wasn't what I planned on, and sometimes that happens. But the kitchen, like I was saying, the walls are so large. When I put just a single layer of the upper cabinets on the wall, it looked so goofy to me. I'm like, wow. There's like such a large space, and I want to use the long floor to ceiling, if you use just the lowest wall height, cabinet where it has like the glass with the plates you can see inside of there. I really wanted to use that piece. And so I had to have the cabinets basically all one height. I kind of tried to make it not one height and have them like every other cabinet was like shifted up a notch, but then it looked just too much. It didn't look good, honestly. Sometimes you can pull it off, but in this case, it wasn't something I could pull off at all. And so I was playing around with a couple of ideas, and I came up with the idea of adding like a second layer of cabinets using only like that single small upper cabinet that you usually put above a window. And I put a layer of that over every single upper cabinet, and I think it turned out so good. And it definitely looks like it's meant to be that way. It makes it look better. It makes the wall not look so large. Like, it still have a big space in between the two, but not as big as if I didn't do that. So I am happy that I ended up coming up with that idea. I think it looks really nice, fancy, elegant, all of the stuff we're going for, okay? And I have like a big island in the center. I have just a few appliances. Well, we have 2 stoves, so there is that. Like, I had to make it that fancy, you know? 2 stoves, 2 ovens, there's 1 microwave. I didn't want to put a bunch of clutter on top of the counters because I feel like that's more small house family oriented and not such like an elegant fancy mansion. I feel like a fancy mansion that probably has maids and butlers and all this stuff is not going to be cluttered at all. Like it's going to be nice and neat and clean. And so you'll notice throughout this whole build, there's not a whole lot of clutter at all. Like not even in the kids' rooms. Or I did make a tree house in the backyard. That's really honestly not cluttered. Maybe a little bit more kid friendly than the actual house, but not a whole lot. We have a game room in this house that honestly isn't very cluttered either. Like I just wanted it to be clutter free, and it worked out because we're only using base game, so there's not a whole lot of clutter to work with anyways, unless you use the same old thing over and over again, which I try not to do, but you'll notice there is a lot of the same furniture throughout the house. But it's such a big house that once you get from one point of the house to the next point of the house, you forget what you've seen at the other point, you know? So I think it's fine. And then we have like a giant chandelier above the island counter and some stools and the fridge on the other side with a couple of the tall cabinets on both sides. And really, honestly, that's about it. I think it turned out really cute. And we also, at this point, we got the dining room done too. I have like this huge curved wall on the side of the mansion that I think looks so good. I really wanted to keep it. And above it, it actually has like a balcony that has a roof over it. But the curved part, I did not add a roof on the curved part. And I actually really love that detail. I feel like it's kind of realistic. It has like columns separating the covered piece from the non-covered piece, if that makes sense. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed the way that looked. And I'll talk about the balcony once we get there, like once I add some stuff, why I added what I added. But in the dining room, I ended up putting a bar in that little curved area. I struggled what to put there. I struggled with that. But at the end of the day, I ended up coming up with the idea of putting like a long bar there. It has nothing but windows in the back, so I feel like it's a really good area to have a bar. I almost did a sitting area, but I felt like having it as a functional little area, like with the bar, that was better than it being non-functional. Like we already have a lot of quote unquote sitting areas in the house that literally isn't functional. Like we have a really big grand formal living room when you first walk in, and then we have an entertainment room, and we have like various couches and ottomans throughout the build that I felt like it just needed to be functional. And I didn't want to do a chess table because I knew I was gonna have chess tables everywhere else, like on the balconies and stuff. And so then I seen the bar and I was like, okay, yes, of course. They're gonna throw parties and functions and, you know, have their bartender, their personal bartender, make them drinks and stuff. So that just made sense to me. It will be very, very good to throw like dinner parties and stuff in this mansion for sure. If you have a pack that includes dinner parties, because I don't remember if that's base game or not. But at the very least, I know house parties are in base game, and so you can throw a great house party here too. I don't think I added radios anywhere besides the kids' room, well, the kids' playroom downstairs. So you might have to add some radios throughout the house to make it even better. But other than that, yeah, you can throw a great party here. So not only do we have the main like formal dining room, I also have an extra smaller dining room that maybe the family mainly eats at. And then in the formal one, that's where they throw their parties and stuff. And next to that smaller dining room, we have an entertainment room. So right when you first walk in the mansion, off to the right, I have a couple of couches. I'm not done with that area quite yet in the build, but I do just make that like a formal sitting room, and there's no TV or anything like that. It's literally just couches with a huge coffee table in the center with some decorations and stuff. Like nothing functional about it whatsoever. It's just for show. And then right next to that smaller dining area, that is where the entertainment room is. That is where the TV is at. That's where the family will come and work on their fun skill. Well, not the fun skill, the fun need. I do not add a game system in there, like a PlayStation. I end up just putting the TV, and I should have put a radio. You know what? I do put a radio in that entertainment room. I do that a little bit later when I realize there's no radio in there yet. And it's an entertainment room. It needs entertainment items, you know? So next to the centerpiece on the coffee table, I do end up adding a radio, like an old-timey fancy looking radio, and then some other like decoration, which I think I end up adding a vertical digital picture frame. In the dining room, the formal one, there's two horizontal picture frames on both sides, and both sides of those hall tables have the same items. I know that's kind of boring, but listen, this is base game, and I feel like that would be kind of normal for a mansion. Like, they want it to be nice and unison, so maybe that's normal. I don't know. I've never been in a mansion in my life, to be honest, so I have no idea. But that's what I imagine, is for everything to be kind of unison and fancy and clean and nice, you know? But yeah, so that entertainment room, it has a radio, it has a TV, and then like couches to sit on. There's a bathroom directly leading from that entertainment room. And then there is an additional bathroom that has like a tub and stuff. That one that's in the entertainment room is just like a half bath. And then there is an additional one with like a shower tub combo in it that's in the hallway. And this is not the master bedroom, but I feel like it's like the step down under the master. It's like the second. There's like two master bedrooms, but the main master bedroom upstairs is fancier because it has that outdoor covered balcony on the second story. So I imagine that one that I just did the bathroom for to be like the grandparents' room or something. And then the one upstairs is like the parents' room. And they probably own the mansion. They have their parents living here or something. Or just that's their room when they come to stay. And then we also have a mother-in-law suite in the backyard also. And then like 4 or so bedrooms upstairs. Oh, this is where I realized you can actually make the railing go up a certain part of the staircase. Like, you can make it go halfway down the staircase or just at the bottom, and the last 3 steps has no railing. Like, you can adjust that, which is actually really, really cool. I like that. It didn't look good for this build. I like the railing being all the way down, but that's good to note for future builds. And off to the left when you first walk in, so I ended up adding a little like table with a bust on top of it for when you first walk in. It needed something on that little rug, and I felt like it made sense to have like a really nice bust right there that probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And off to the left, I ended up closing that room off, putting a couple of archways, and then putting like a grand piano in there with some decorations. And I called it a day. That's pretty much it for that room. We have a little computer desk right here. I do end up moving that chess table over to the rug in the hallway. I believe I end up doing that. I don't think I end up keeping it where it's at. I think it looked better on the rug. By the way, while we're talking about chess tables, we have about 10 in this build, okay? When in doubt, you don't know what to put there, put a chess table. Put some sort of skill building item and it's probably going to be fine. So I'm working on the formal sitting room like I was talking about earlier. We have a huge rug, we have a couple of nice sofas, and I made that coffee table by like adjusting the coffee tables, like placing one over the other, and I put some at a catty corner, and I think I ended up putting about 3 there, maybe 4. And then I put a really nice bouquet of flowers on top. So pretty. I love that bouquet of flowers. It really reminds me of like a wedding, but it makes sense for a mansion too. And then I have not done all of the other bedrooms and stuff on the bottom story. I do end up doing that in just a little bit. I think after I do all these bedrooms up here. And I do make one like the grandparents' room, like I was talking about. Then I make another one just a guest room, like it's just basic. And then we have a playroom for the kids. And then we also have an office that has 2 computer desks and computers and stuff on there. So it turns out really nice. I am working on the master bedroom's balcony right now. And I do end up putting an easel in the little corner on the left side. And then on the other right side, I just put a plant. We have some really nice couches out here, which might not make sense for outside, but hey, listen, it's well enough on the inside of the balcony. It has a roof over it. It's inside enough to where the rain's not going to get on there. It's fine. It's also The Sims, and it's also base game. It doesn't rain, so it's fine. This is always beautiful weather in the base game, which I really despise that, by the way, because it's not realistic, but you know what? They want you to pay for seasons, that's for sure. That's like one expansion pack they know everyone's gonna buy, because who doesn't want seasons in their game? And then in the curved part of the balcony that is not covered, I ended up putting an outdoor chess table right there. And that is it for the balcony. We are now working on the inside of the master bedroom, and this little area that leads from the main bedroom to the balcony, I made as like a walk-in closet sort of thing. So we have a couple of dressers. I did like a his and hers right there. So one dresser is for the husband, the other dresser is for the wife, and I put the items that they would want on their dresser. So I have some like men's skincare items that I found in the catalog on the husband's, with some mirrors. They have the same mirrors on both. And then on the wife, of course I had to put a couple of Coach bags, okay? Listen, she probably in real life would have like 20 Coach bags on the wall in her closet, but I couldn't fit that many, so I put a couple. I figured that was better than nothing. And then some really nice fancy looking perfume. And that's about it for the walk-in closet. In the bedroom, I struggled with the color scheme, as you can probably tell, but I do end up going back to the original one that I had. I really like the blue swatch on the bed. It doesn't have a matching swatch on that chair or the ottoman, which honestly is kind of irritating, but I made it work nonetheless. And then I have these super fancy curtains, and I end up adding those in a lot of the other rooms too. A lot of the rooms throughout this whole build has those fancy curtains. I've been really wanting to use those fancy curtains from base game, but I don't do any builds that is fancy enough that calls for those curtains, you know? I only do suburban builds, and those curtains is not a suburban build thing whatsoever. It's mansion. It's like super nice mansion, or like semi-mansion, elegant sort of vibe. And like I said, I don't usually do that, so I had to take advantage of doing this build and using these curtains of all different swatches. I really stick with this specific swatch, which they recently updated those curtains. We didn't have as many swatches for the longest time, but they recently did a lot of like updates on a lot of the base game items and added more swatches, and I believe this item was one of those items they updated. And I want to say this swatch is a newer swatch, maybe not, but I don't really recognize it. I don't remember it being there, and I love it. I love the light wood with the white. That's right up my alley. You guys know I like both of those things. I love white and I love the light wood, so I do end up using those curtains in a lot of the areas. And in each of the bedrooms, other than the nursery that I'm working on, I tried to stick with just normal bedroom items. So for the master bedroom, I do have a TV and then a fireplace. And other than that, it's just like the bed with some end tables and decorations and really just bedroom specific stuff. And then in the nursery, I do have a dresser, I have the crib, I have a couple of end tables that I hope you're able to put your infant in the crib, by the way. If not, you might have to delete one of the end tables, but I believe it's functional. I have a huge fancy mansion looking dollhouse for the infant, and like a stuffed animal, a toy box, a lot of like infant items in the infant's nursery, of course. And we are now working on the kids' room. So you probably see a few bathrooms up here. Those are the bathrooms that I cut out. Like you can tell, it's just like the ones downstairs for the most part. You didn't need to see me do it 100 different times. I mean, if you did, I'm sorry, but I feel like 3 was enough. You got the gist of it. We are now working on the kids' room. So the kids' room and the teens' room, I mean, the teen has a computer in their room, but for the most part, especially for the kid, it's really just a couple of beds, a dresser, some decorations, and that's about it. They have a game room downstairs, and they also have some skill building items and games in their treehouse in the backyard that I end up adding to. So I figured they didn't really need a whole lot of toys and skill building items in their room since they have it in other places. And the teen, you know, teens, they want their own space. So of course, she's gonna want a computer in her room. And she has like a pink vibe going on with some white curtains. Pink and white is the theme in this room. That's pretty much the only colors I end up using in this room, that's for sure. So she has a dresser with a mirror over it. She has a double bed, a couple of fancy nightstands, and then a computer desk. And that's basically it. I also put that really pretty wedding-like bouquet in her room too, because why not? I thought it was cute. And it definitely matched the vibe for her room. And we're actually done with the upstairs. I am now just adding a few things on the balcony in the back, and I believe I end up furnishing the balcony in the front as well. So the one in the back, I put a telescope on both corners in the first part of it, and then the side balcony, I end up putting some chess tables. And here in the front, I do the same thing with the chess tables, but in this area, I ended up just putting a couple of benches. I did struggle with what to put in this area. I didn't know if I wanted to put anything, but I felt like putting nothing was a little bit too bland. And so I did add the chairs with the coffee table. I put 3 end tables next to each other to make a long coffee table. I've never actually done that before, but I think it looks really good. And then just a plant on top. And down here, I did end up leaving the main part of it blank. I have a couple of benches on both sides. I put a fan in the very center, so it's nice and cool when you walk in. And other than that, there's really nothing else. And then we have chess tables on both sides of like the skinny part where the window is. Of course, every single floor has a chess table or two. I didn't know what else to put there. It was way too skinny to put like a bench comfortably, and at least there's plenty of skill building items, so you really can't complain. And by the way, while I'm thinking about it, right now, I do have yellow window boxes, like the yellow flower window boxes on each of the windows. But way later, once I finished the build, it was actually off camera when I was taking screenshots. I was really looking at it. And the landscaping I use is white and blue. I don't use any yellow landscaping. So I was like, okay, why do I have the yellow flower boxes at the end of the day if there's no other yellow detailing, especially on the outside of the build? So I end up changing each of the window boxes to the white flowers instead. You probably could tell from the screenshot on the thumbnail. I just thought it looked so much better that way. I'm way happier with it considering we don't have any yellow flowers outside. It just matched so much better. I at first wanted to do the yellow. I thought I wanted it to have a nice bright atmosphere, but once I did the landscaping, I didn't do yellow. So at the end of the day, the yellow flower boxes just didn't make sense at all. And when I did change it to white, it made it look so much more elegant for some reason. I'm not sure why. The white just is elegant, I guess. And I guess I could have done blue, but really honestly, the blue and the white look basically the same. Just the blue has a little bit of a tint to it, but barely enough to make a difference. So we're working on the office now. I have big tall bookcases on both sides of the room. Right now I have only one desk, but I do end up adding a second one, and they're kind of faced towards each other. And then we have like a chair and a plant, and I tried to make it look nice and functional, and I think I achieved it. I also got the grandparents' room done. We have a bed, and I had this huge space in front of the bed that I wasn't sure what to do with until I finally figured out I definitely should put like a little sitting area for them. And then there's like a tall bookcase so they could grab a book and go sit on the couch and just read for a while and be nice and relaxed. And you could add a radio in there and they could listen to classical music or something, whatever rich people do that live in a mansion, who knows. But I added like one of the fancy couches, or well, a love seat, and then a coffee table on in front of it and a little single chair in the corner. And then we have a dresser in there, the bed, the nightstands, and that's really honestly it. And then some fancy artwork. And we are now working on the kids' game room. At first, I thought I wanted to put nothing but like kids' skill building items in here, and I do end up adding a couple of those. I add a mental table, and I also add a creativity table, but I put more kids' skill building items up in their treehouse. I decided, you know what, let's put a room that the teen can use too. So we have a big flat screen TV, we have a PlayStation, we have one of those smart speakers that does a whole bunch of different stuff. And one of those things is play music, so I thought it was perfect. And then, like I said, we have a mental table and a creativity table, or actually two creativity tables. And I almost put one of those gaming mats in here. I really wanted to, but those are just so big and bulky, it didn't fit. At least it kind of did, but it didn't look right. Like, I could have put it behind the couch, but I did not like the way it looked at all. I much rather have put a couple of creativity tables like I did instead. And this is just the guest room. It literally is so simple. Like, I'm already done with it. That's how simple it was. It's just for guests when they come over, and maybe the guest room is already taken. I don't know, there's plenty of rooms in this house. Mansion for sure. It's definitely a mansion. There ends up being like 8 bedrooms, and that's not even including the game room and office. And then like 9 bathrooms, I think. So there's definitely a lot going on in this mansion. We are completely done with the mansion now, actually, and we are now finishing up the exterior. At first, I almost put this like covered patio gazebo sort of thing with a big outdoor dining table on there, but I honestly absolutely hated the way it looked. I ended up keeping it in here just so you guys could see where I almost went with it, but it honestly looked terrible in my opinion. I couldn't make it work. It just didn't look right, especially once I added the guest house / mother-in-law suite in the other corner. It was just too much going on. So I do end up adding a big tree in that right corner, and then that is where I put the tree house. So I just kind of wanted you to see where I almost went with it, but it just wasn't working out in my opinion. It honestly looked pretty good from this point of view, but when you do like an aerial view of it, it just didn't look right. I don't know, there was something off about it. Maybe I just made it too big, but I really wanted to make it look fancy with the platforms that I wasn't able to use inside, so I wanted to use it out here. And I don't know, it was just too much going on. I end up adding terrain paint all in the fenced area a little bit later in the build once I finish everything and I'm pretty much done with most of the landscaping. I do end up painting like a darker green on all of the grass on the inside of the fence, and then I take an even darker grass and I do that like fancy sort of grass texture where I skip every other line and I put the dark green grass on every other line, and it just gives that fancy like line look. Like, I don't know what it's called. I don't really know how to accurately explain it, but I'm sure you guys know what I mean. And it looks so good. I feel like it adds so much good detail and just makes it look even more like a mansion, like an elegant mansion. And so I'm really happy with it. And right now on the other side, I'm adding a platform for the lounge chairs. So listen guys, I think I said earlier in the build I struggled with the back area, and I wasn't lying, I really did. I wasn't sure how I wanted to go about designing the back area. I don't know, it just wasn't looking good to me at all. I wasn't happy with it whatsoever at this point. So I'm like, you know what? I'm adding a mother-in-law suite so that it takes up some space back here, and then I'll figure out what I'm doing with the other side. I didn't know what I was doing at this point yet. So this was me just trying to build something while trying to think of what to do on the other side. And I do end up deleting that platform where the lounge chairs are. I completely removed that. And I make the area around the pool just a complete square. And on two sides, like vertical from each other, I put lounge chairs with an end table with like a plant. And then on the other side, which is like vertical from each other, I ended up putting an umbrella and chair set. And so it wasn't exactly how I wanted it to be, but it was something. Now that I'm thinking about it, I could have added like an outdoor kitchen area, but listen, we're already almost 50 minutes into the build. I was done at this point. I was trying to get this build done. I wasn't trying to make it go on for another hour. And I could have made it go on for another hour if I added, you know, an outdoor kitchen, because I go all out in my kitchens. I tend to do that for some reason. And so, yeah, maybe it's all for the better that I didn't do that. But I didn't even add a grill now that I'm thinking about it, so I should have done that. But who knows? Maybe you don't usually see grills at mansions. If you really want one, you could totally add one in the pool area somewhere. There's plenty of space. I have also never used a willow tree or a weeping willow tree in The Sims, and I really wanted to take advantage of it here in this build. Since they're such big trees, they're kind of hard to use and make fit, and I felt like this build had plenty of like yard space to put a weeping willow. But I was wrong. I don't know. There's just something about them that makes them a little bit hard for me to use and actually look good. Maybe they're a little bit too big. I have no idea. But I ended up putting my regular oak trees instead. And then like the smaller trees that I don't know the name of, but I have them just sporadically throughout the build. That one right there, they look like little mini oak trees to me, but I don't know the actual name for them, but I do love those. All of the landscaping I use in this build, I absolutely adore and I use most of the time. The only plant that I never use are like those blue ones, and they're called like Passion's Kiss or something. There's different swatches. I used to hate them, to be honest, but I actually kind of like them now. I think they look really good in this build. And I use the blue swatch, but there's also like a yellow and an orange and a pink and a red. Like I really honestly need to use them a lot more. I have said recently that I never use red window boxes because there's not any red flowers to match. If I do the red, then I usually just do like white hydrangeas. But those Passion's Kiss plants, the flowers, I want to say that there's a red swatch. I'm gonna have to look into that, and if so, then I need to definitely use them. But look how cute they are. I feel like they match with the hydrangeas like perfectly. And a lot of the landscaping, by the way, is super manicured, which obviously would be found in a mansion. Like they probably hire a gardener and stuff, so I just feel like it kind of makes sense. The landscaping, honestly, I was really intimidated with the landscaping. I wasn't sure what to do. I ended up just adding a bunch of random stuff everywhere. Wherever I thought it looked good or needed something, I added some landscaping. And I did these like perfectly circle bushes that I don't usually use, but it makes sense for a mansion. It has to be manicured. Like I said, they probably hire a gardener. And then I have these like ferns. I have the white hydrangeas with these Passion's Kiss blue flowers absolutely everywhere. And that's basically all of the landscaping I use. And then obviously the manicured hedgerow bushes. And that's really about it, and I place them in a way that looks meticulous, like it's meant to be that way. It's that way because they planted it, and then I have like thick terrain paint underneath it. I did a layer of the dying grass sort of terrain paint where it's like dirt and grass mixed together, and then like a garden soil on top of that. I really like that mix. I feel like it looks realistic. You'll see me though, I do end up having to redo that terrain paint, unfortunately, because I realized I wanted to do that trick with the grass with the two different colors, one after the other. And so I completely have to redo the terrain paint that I already did. But I feel like it was worth it for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons being it looked better, okay? And then the second reason was I realized as I was doing this that the dirt that I put underneath all of the landscaping actually blended a lot better since I had the grass terrain paint already there. Does that make sense? Like it's like terrain paint on top of terrain paint. So it just blended better. And I never realized that. Like when you have just the basic normal grass there, sometimes it can look really harsh and unrealistic if you do too heavy of a hand. And then some terrain paint, especially with like a stone or a brick, it's just not feasible to use because it just doesn't look realistic to me. But I'm gonna have to try those out that I don't normally like to use on top of a grass terrain paint to see if it makes a difference. I have a feeling it probably will, so I'm definitely gonna look into that here soon. I've had so much fun with the terrain paint on this build, believe it or not. I have fun with terrain paint anyways, to be honest. Terrain paint just livens up a build so much. Like it's night and day with and without terrain paint for sure. And doing something new with this one just made it that much more fun. And then in the fountain area, in each corner, I added some landscaping. I added a couple of ferns and a hydrangea, and I just think it turned out so cute. I love it. With the like functional fountain pieces inside of the fountain that's like squirting out the water. I absolutely love that. And there was a huge section of just brick right in the front on both sides in front of that like fence that I have there. And I knew it was missing something, but I didn't know what to add. I ended up just cutting out a couple of squares, adding a tree with some landscaping, and that was it. I felt like that was better than nothing. I don't know if that's really what I was aiming for, but it looks good, so at least there's that. It was definitely better than leaving it just brick, that's for sure. At this point in the build is when I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna do a tree house. It's gonna take some extra time, but it will be worth it to fill this corner up a little bit, or else it would have just been too blank. And the mother-in-law suite / guest house and the tree house is exactly the same like color scheme and detailing and stuff as the main part of the house, as the main mansion. I felt like that just made sense. I mean, that is probably what you would typically find in a mansion. Tree house or not, it's gonna, in my mind, probably match the mansion. Like they're probably in an HOA, and in my neighborhood, it's not an HOA, but it is deed restricted. And they actually have in the deed restriction that if you add any sort of guest house or any shed or anything, it has to match the main house. Now, in my neighborhood, it's not really like being followed by a lot of people. I don't live in a mansion neighborhood, but I would probably say that in a neighborhood like this, it would definitely be followed, you know? But yeah, that's the vibe I was going for here. So the guest house and the tree house, they both match the mansion pretty much to the T. Like the paneling on the outside of the house, the columns, the fencing, the friezes, it matches. And I actually really love that. I love the look at that. It makes it look like the kids have their own little like mini mansion, and I think that is so cute. So we're inside working on the guest house. We're in the kitchen. I contemplated whether or not to cut this part out. I decided let's just leave it in. We're already this deep in. We only got about 10 more minutes left. Let's just keep it in. Let's go all in, you know? I want you guys to see everything that I do without cutting it out, you know? So we have a bathroom and a bedroom. The bathroom you can only access from the bedroom. That's just how the floor plan laid out. But this is a guest house, so I felt like it kind of made sense. No one's really gonna be in here besides the guest, and so it's fine. Or maybe people swimming in the pool might come in here because it's closer, and they can just go through the bedroom. It's fine. Luckily, you don't have to worry about water dripping all over the floor, and even if you did, there's butlers and maids to take care of it here in the mansion, so it's fine. And then we have a kitchen, we have a dining room when you first walk into the front door, and it's actually a pretty big dining table considering this is a guest house. And then that area off to the right is actually a living room slash just a sitting room. Like, I didn't have space to put a TV, so I end up just placing 2 3-seater sofas. You'll see that here soon. I change out that love seat to 2 3-seater sofas, and then I just put a coffee table in the center of them both. And that's really honestly about it. I figured it's fine. If they need entertainment, they can just walk over to the mansion. There's plenty of entertainment over there. This is really just to sleep in, and it'll be fine. They do have a microwave, they have a full kitchen, and I did the kitchen very similar to the actual house, or the actual mansion, should I say, in the main part, where it has like the 2-tier cabinets. I did the same here because it's such tall walls. I had to do it. I didn't have a choice, or else it just looked weird. And then on the balcony outside of the guest house, I added a couple of like patio chairs with some end tables, and that's it for the guest house. I don't furnish the tree house until the very last thing. I was just putting it off, to be honest. And I am now starting on the terrain paint with the grass thing that I was talking about. Now you probably see what I was trying to say. It's like you mow it a certain way, like you have to cut one part a little bit lower than the other part, I believe. And it creates this sort of like fancy looking design. And I felt like it just made sense for a mansion. It definitely was tedious. It was definitely monotonous. It might not be perfect, but hey, it's fine at the end of the day. It's not everything has to be perfect, guys, okay? I know I'm one to say that. If I wasn't already so tired of building this mansion, I would have been really irritated by it not being perfect, but I did the best that I could. And where I started out doing actually was way worse than where I finished. So I do go back to that first area and I kind of fix it up a little bit, but not much. Just enough to make it not look so bad. I do end up adding that brick walkway with the terrain paint that I painted on earlier back, and I'm not gonna lie, it was scary because since I did all of this work with the terrain paint, I had to make sure I was happy with it. I could always do the undo button, but once I like go too far ahead, there is no more undoing. So I had to be happy with it right then and there. Usually I'll like come back to something and look at it again to make sure I'm happy with it, and I could not do that here. I had to make sure the first time, so I might place and delete a couple times before I'm like, okay, this is it. And once I was finally happy with it, I actually went the extra mile to outline both sides with the dying grass terrain paint. And I mean, that's not really necessary, but it does give it an extra detail that I feel like would be missed if I didn't add it there. So I do think it was worth going the extra mile. I also do the same with the path in the back too. And I could have done like the actual floor tile brick like I did in the front leading to the backyard, but I really loved the way it looked using the terrain paint because I could make it windy and curvy, and I don't know how to do that with the actual like tiles. So I know that there's a way. I've seen like videos and snapshots and screenshots of other people doing it, but hey, listen, I don't know how to do it. So I just use the terrain paint, and I chose that specific tile for a couple of reasons. One, it is the only thing that matched the brick in the front off the lot as good as possible. I mean, it's not exact. It's a little bit more red than it is off the lot, but it's the best I could get. And it also had a matching terrain paint. So that is why I'm using this specific brick. I don't love this brick, to be honest. I really like a normal concrete color the best, like the normal suburban sidewalk color, or the one with the little like gravels in between I like better also, but I just wanted it to match that like curved driveway in the front off the lot. That was like one thing I knew I wanted to do. I wanted it to look like it's like made to be that way. It's kind of blending in, you know? And so yeah, I didn't have a choice. I had to use the brick. But obviously if you don't like it and you feel like redoing the terrain paint, or you're fine with just removing all the terrain paint because you don't like the brick that much, you could totally just like grab it, press shift, and it'll cover all of the brick with whatever floor tile you want to replace it with. But then it's gonna have the brick pathway if you don't remove it, so just keep that in mind. You can always just redo all of that with the grass, or just choose one grass color you like to paint over all of the grass, but then like the dirt and stuff's gonna be missing. So I don't know, if I were you, I would just leave it how it is. And I am now finishing up the pool area. So I have that big fountain in the middle. It almost looks like, you know, the kids would have so much fun like just being under that and having like a waterfall fall on them. And then I have one of those fish fountains on each corner. It's like the koi fish fountain. I think it's cute. It definitely matches the rich mansion, classy, elegant vibe, you know? And I never get to use them, so I had a lot of fun using them here. And then I used a couple of different pieces of the decor that you put at the bottom of the pool, and I placed it in a way to make like a custom piece, and I don't know, I think it looks pretty good. It was better than leaving it blank, that's for sure. I know it looks like there's a lot going on down there, but that was kind of the point. It looked way too blank without it, so I was pretty happy with it at the end of the day. And then we have a ladder on each side where the curved part of the pool is, and then we have plenty of lights to light it up at night. And then I have one of those mini oak trees on both sides of the patio area where the pool is. I have some lounge chairs on both corners, kind of catty-cornered with each other, and same with the umbrella and chair set. And then plenty of landscaping. I'm still adding landscaping. I feel like I've been adding landscaping for like 10 minutes now, but you need a lot of pretty landscaping for a mansion like this, or else it's just too blank on the outside. And I also said, what the heck, why not add a few gardening planter boxes? Let's just do it. Maybe someone likes to garden here. It was also just something to fill up that space. And then we have a monkey bar set for the kids, and then of course the tree house, and we have a few trash cans on the very corner of the lot right next to that pathway. And now I am just adding all of the terrain paint underneath each of the landscaping areas, as well as like the trees and the trash cans, these planter boxes, the monkey bars, anything that needs a little bit of like dirt under it. I'm adding some terrain paint there. And then once I'm done with the terrain paint, I will go up into the treehouse and decorate the treehouse. And that's gonna be it for the build. So I guess at this point, I'm just going to explain what I put in the treehouse, and then after that, I will let you guys go, okay? I think I have held you guys up enough. So in the treehouse, it's relatively simple. So we do have another bathroom up there. Why not? It's a mansion. And then I do have a couple of like beds up there, like the cheaper, fancy type of beds with like a nightstand. So if the kids want to take a nap or spend the night up there, they can. And then I have a mental table, I have a creativity table, I have a desk with a computer, and that really is about it. I have the tree going through the tree house because duh, it's a tree house. So of course it has to have that. And yeah, that's really honestly it for the treehouse. I also have a telescope outside on the balcony. And wow, today's video was very, very long. And I really do hope you guys enjoyed it. Of course, if you did, please don't forget to leave a like. It lets me know you enjoyed this build. It will tell me you want to see more mansions in the future, whether that be base game or with packs. Also subscribe if you have not already, and share this video with your friends if they are simmers as well. Comment down below what your favorite part of today's build is. I really love to hear from you guys. Doing any and all of those things really helps my channel out. It helps the algorithm kick my videos out to other simmers, and it just helps support my channel. Me being a small creator, I appreciate you guys so much. I know the new pack is coming out tomorrow. I have not decided if I am going to post a video doing a speed build for that pack on Friday or if I'm gonna wait till next week. Nevertheless, stay tuned. I am going to do some content on that pack. It looks like one that I would enjoy, so I am going to purchase it. At this point, we are well into the screenshot, so I will let you guys go. I hope you all have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Have fun playing with the new pack if you are purchasing it as well, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye guys!